One of the things I've been thinking about, and I know I haven't given anything like enough airtime to on these videos, and in my thinking generally, is to do with the fact that we are social beings. When I've been thinking and talking, mainly because it's my interest right now, all of that comes out of a set of understandings which focus on individual experience. And it's an individual in a landscape. It's this experience that I have in this field in Cheshire, which for me is a kind of default starting point really for a lot of the thinking. What's it like to stand in a field in Cheshire and look out toward the horizon, or watch the swallows feeding, which they're doing right now, or just listen to the sounds of cars on the distant bypass. And I certainly have found that quite a rich place to start from. But I am aware that look at the swallows on these lines, by the way, behind me. They're gathering for migration. I've got all these swallows gathering in the phone lines. Anyway, but I do recognise that I've missed out a whole tranche of ideas to do with the fact that we are social creatures. We were pack animals at one point, presumably in our evolutionary history. And we're still pack animals now, although it's a complex, sophisticated pack mediated through institutions and abstract structures like economics and language and law and all these institutions that we've built up to negotiate that social experience, really. I suppose where I'd like to go with that, and I don't know if I'll pursue this at all actually, maybe not enough time, but what I would like to try to do with that at some point is to bring in some of these ideas about metaphors that I've been talking about. And I suppose here I'm kind of prompted by two things really. I'm kind of prompted partly by a remark that Richard Dawkins makes toward the end of the presentation he gave on the TED Talk series back in 2005. It's one called Queerer Than We Can Suppose. But in that, toward the end, he just mentions this fact that we are social creatures and we live in a social environment. That's kind of how he puts it. Almost as if we are kind of fish swimming through a sea of other people, or as if we are birds flying through a forest that consists of other people. And it's a very attractive, and I think it is necessary to have good explanatory metaphors for those kind of things. But that particular metaphor that Dawkins used, I think I had some problems with it. It misses out on certain things, and some of the entailments of it don't work for me. And mainly it's to do with the fact that when we conceive of ourselves as kind of swimming through a sea of other people, or we think of the social world as the environment in which we live, it seems to me we're making a kind of distinction of form, or distinction of type, between ourselves as a body in the environment and then the environment itself, which is everybody else. And that kind of distinction I don't think is terribly helpful. I think it would be more useful to think of a metaphor in which oneself and the other members of the environment, other people, are of the same kind. And I think we do find those, we do talk about people, well, we don't really talk about much about them, but there is the beginnings of a language to do with swarms and crowds. So I'm thinking of the Wisdom of Crowds, for example, a recent book that was produced by James Surowiecki, I think. Yeah. So I think we are starting to think of metaphors, but they're not very good metaphors. A crowd isn't a very complex system, really. It's nothing as complex as the natural environment. So I think we need to find better metaphors for that. The other, prompt for me to start thinking in these terms, really, is to do with an absolute necessity of doing that. I suppose I'm just thinking about climate change, really. The big social concerns that we have with climate change being a significant one of them. Because climate change, and I'm assuming it's correct, that's all the evidence seems to point to that, climate change undoubtedly will affect a lot of people. But it won't be the climate that affects people, in my opinion. Very, very few people, it seems to me, will die directly as a result of rising sea levels, or directly as a result of changing temperatures in parts of the world. People will die and have their lives negatively affected because they'll have to move. I think I saw a video, maybe it may have been Al Gore actually who was talking about this, it might have been somebody else, who was saying that if the sea levels rise 1 metre, then 10 million people, 10 million of the poorest people actually in southern India, will be displaced and will have to move north. It's not the sea levels that will affect people, it's massive amounts of people on the move. And it doesn't just affect people in southern India, of course. You know, as far as I'm aware, there is no plan in place for how to repopulate the populations of London and New York and Venice and Sydney and the whole population of the Netherlands. So presumably if there are changes, relatively quick changes, all those people will be on the move, and all the infrastructure that those people are responsible for right now will be disappeared. So that all that will have to be re-engineered somewhere else. And it's that kind of social impact which will affect people's lives negatively, largely. As I say, very few people I think will be washed away by rising tides. It'll be the people who live in other places who will experience a tide of immigration that they may have some problems with. So again, I think I'm just saying that for myself, to the extent that I might want to move into considering those areas, and the extent to which we exist as social beings, it'll be a concern for how we understand society, how we understand culture, how we understand the social environment, through the use of the metaphors that we deploy to do that.